Inshallah, before we continue, one of the youth sisters will be presenting a surah of the Quran. Please welcome Sister Aliza with a salawat ala Muhammad wa alayhi Muhammad. Allah. Maybe not here yet, so we'll try it after, inshallah. Next, we have Sister Naha, who will be presenting a surah of the Quran with the translation, as well as a short speech. So please welcome her with another loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah. Where is she? Okay. Please stand by. We both. Okay. Okay, Sister Aliza is here. She'll be presenting Surah of the Quran with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali. Translation, okay.
I begin in the name of Allah, the most beneficial, the most merciful. I seek refuge with the Lord of humankind, the King of humankind, the God of humankind, from the evil, sneaky tempter that whispers temptations into the hearts of humankind. And with the jinn and the humankind.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. MashaAllah. Just as a reminder, this was announced previously, but any of the children or kids would like to recite surahs of the Quran, especially if they can do the English translation from memory, there is a cash prize that's promised for that, inshallah, on the night of Eid when we'll have a celebration. Next, we have Sister Naha, who will be presenting a short speech. Please welcome her with a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. As this blessed month is coming to a close, here are 4 ways to say forgive me. Do not let this month pass away. This indeed is the perfect moment to seek forgiveness, whether from God, from yourself, and from others. Number 1, cover me with your mercy. Forgive me, and fold me as the earth enfolds the leaf, tucking it into the dark, tender soil where no storm can pierce its fragile form. Number 2, erase my wrongs. Forgive me, as the rain forgives the dust on the morning air, washing the earth clean, leaving no trace, only the scent of new beginnings. Number 3, turn the page, forgive me. Let the book of me rest on the shelf, where time whispers through its pages, and the past slips away like dust into the night. Number 4, final one, grant me your grace, forgive me, weave through me, like wind through an empty field, lifting the seeds of who I am, until I stand whole again, rooted and free of my mistakes. Inshallah, may all our sins be forgiven and all our hajjats be answered. Salla ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
For all the marhum mu'mineen, mu'minat, the ulama, the shuhada, especially since Thursday night, let's remember all of them with a Surah Al-Fatiha. Inshallah, we'll continue with the lecture by respected guest scholar Sayyid Abbas. Please welcome him with another loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى يوم الدين. Shahr Ramadan is leaving us, and this will be the last Thursday night of Shahr Ramadan. While it is leaving, hopefully our sins will be removing as well with this month, inshallah. And as the new moon comes, the month of Shawwal, most likely Eid will be on Monday, inshallah, but depending on moon sighting. Hopefully when the new moon comes, inshallah, for us, new horizons, a new beginning will come as we will be forgiven like a newborn child. We reach Prophet Sulayman alayhi salam. Many are interested in the stories of Prophet Sulayman, or as they say in English, Solomon. And in a nutshell, if I want to open up the story of this great prophet, the son of Prophet Dawood, the one who was a prophet, they say, at the age of around 13, the one who had command of the wind, that he would travel, according to Quran, months-long journey. Imagine normally how long it would take to go to a distance, a far distance with 1 month. He would do it in 1 morning, or for example, in 1 afternoon. He had the command and control of the winds at his disposal. He was able to speak to animals, and the animals were a part of his army. The birds were part of his army. And he himself wanted a kingdom that no other before him had. And we talk about the kingdom of Prophet Sulayman, one that is controlled by wind, one controlled by animals, one controlled by ins, humans, one controlled by jinn. The jinn, these mystical creatures that you cannot see, inshallah, you do not see, they were in control and they would die for him, they would build for him, for example. So he was a very powerful ruler. But I want you to see how he lived while having so much power. He had the power of copper, for example. A lot of times we look at politicians and kings and rulers usually, and we see that they are the most selfish people, and that they do not stop oppression, they do not, for example, take care of the destitute. Yet we learn from this story of Prophet Sulayman that yes, an individual can be a king, can be a politician, can rule, and yet be fair and be good for the people. This is the story of Prophet Sulayman, that when you have power and you have ultimate power, you do not oppress even an ant. In the story of Surah An-Naml, the ant, we'll mention it, will not even, it will say in the tradition, he says, narrated that I will not even oppress an ant, I will not even kill an ant, because he's a prophet of God. Imagine living and wanting rulers to be from the prophets and imams, individuals that will not do any type of zulm, will take every resource they give for the people. We learn that many times we might in our own lives be affluent. Maybe life is good for us. Maybe I am safe. Maybe I'm well taken care of when it comes to, for example, food and money. But I'll have to learn from Prophet Sulayman alayhi salam to not be a taqi, to not be someone who wages war against Allah. You see Prophet Sulayman, with all the power that he had, they say that he would eat very humble food. He would wear very coarse wearing or attire. And we learn that if you are even rich and you are powerful, this does not mean that necessarily you have to show your wealth to others. Imam Ali alayhi salam, when you look at his life and his zuhd and asceticism, you see that Imam Ali and our Mawla was not, when it came to gaining or working, he was a zahid. He had lots of income. He had so much income that he did not need Baytul Mal, for example. He did not need the money of the people, the money of the kingdom. Just remember yesterday we talked about Prophet Dawood alayhi salam, that also Allah taught him a skill so he would not be dependent on Baytul Mal. So Imam Ali alayhi salam was very successful in building wells in the profession that he had. And today, some of these wells that he has built are existent today. And the water, for example, says Bi'r Ali, meaning this is from the well that Ali ibn Abi Talib built, the quality that is still existing 1400 years later. So sometimes he would build these wells and have, for example, servants, and these servants would go and take the water and they would cultivate and they would farm, and after a few years of farming they would be free, for example. He was very merciful to them. And you'd see he would make from a barren land, lands that were thriving or giving harvest, that he had lots of income. But when it came to himself and usage of that income, there he was a zahid. So when it came to attaining wealth, that is not the place of zuhd, because Islam needs powerful people. Islam was helped by the wealth of Lady Khadija alayhi salam. It needed the wealth. That is why Islam is successful. So therefore, when you are taking and thinking about what job I should do. Remember that economic power is something we need. But when it comes to consumption, that is the place of zuhd, asceticism. Let's read this chapter in Surah Al-Anbiya, verse 81. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَلَسُلَيْمَانَ الرِّيحَ عَاصِفَةً تَجْرِي بِأَمْرِهِ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ. And to Sulayman, the wind blowing forcefully, proceeded by his command toward the land. التي باركنا فيها وكنا بكل شيء عالمين. And we are ever of all things knowing. So the first example of power is what? The wind. Today, you see, humans can control everything but the wind. They can maybe build structures and put, for example, wooden covers, for example, over their windows. They cannot stop the wind. So far, we have not reached that technology where you can stop the wind. So therefore, you see, what kind of power did this prophet have to take control of the wind and to travel with it? Therefore, we see the power that he had in the distance that he traveled. And you see, for example, some of the verses of Quran mention. And then, I did not mention this part. وَمِنَ الشَّيَاطِينِ مَنْ يَغُوصُونَ لَهُ. And of the devils were those who dived for him. They would dive and get things out of the depths of the seas for him. يَعْمَلُونَ عَمَلًا دُونَ ذَلِكَ. And they would do work other than that. They would build homes or different things for this prophet. وَكُنَّا لَهُمْ حَافِظِينَ. And we were of them a guardian. So this is a glimpse of how Prophet Sulayman alayhi salam had power. Brothers and sisters, when we look at also dominion and power that Allah has, and we say, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah al-aliyyul azim, that Allah has power over all things. Is it possible for Allah to give this power to a human? Is it possible for one human to be in control of the winds, control of jinn, control of animals? How come as followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, when we see in the tradition that also our imams had karamat, and they have power, or they had al-walaya at-takwiniya, meaning they have authority over the lands. Why is it sometimes we don't? We say, how can imam have such power? Well, we answer, we say, look at the Holy Quran. The Quran is full of al-walaya at-takwiniya of the prophets. And the imams are the same light and same path. Yes, they don't have a new message. They're protecting deen. They're chosen by God. They have knowledge from God. They're infallible. So therefore, when Allah wills, the imams also will show their power. Even though Allah wants for us, by our own free will, to become powerful, to help the imam. But we know that there was assistance from Rasulullah by, for example, the unseen, the angels. They helped them in the battle of Badr. We know in the same way they will help the imam of the age. So therefore, this shows us that this status that you talk about the imams, and there are those that try to say that Shiism has been injected by these ghulat, or by these, for example, people who have added these things to Shiism. We say, wait a minute, the Holy Quran has all of this. The Holy Quran talks of Prophet Isa alayhi salam informing you, said, I will inform you of what is in your homes. I have knowledge of the unseen. Not only prophets. Sometimes there's ilham and revelation to mother of prophets. Sometimes there's revelation to bees. If Allah can give revelation to a bee and give ilham to a bee, can He not give ilham to the imams who are protecting the last religion? And if this last religion will be destroyed or changed, there will be no more religion, no more guidance for the people. Allah has to guide us. So therefore, He will use whatever means is necessary to protect the deen. Therefore, when you look at the traditions of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, and it talks about the power of the imams, do not have any doubt whatsoever. Because as long as we separate them from the Rabb, as long as we separate them from the Khaliq and we believe they're makhluq, then whatever attributes that you give to them is fine. If they are the separator of heaven and hell, that is fine. There's no problem in that whatsoever. Even we said, Ahlul Sunnah believe in that. Ahmad ibn Hanbal believes in that. That Imam Ali alayhi salam is the separator of heaven and hell. Please recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Let's talk about some of the qualities of Prophet Sulayman. Prophet Sulayman was known for his just judgment. One of the judgments we gave yesterday with Prophet Dawud alayhi salam. He was known to accept repentance and was to give some stories. And he was known with all his power not to do dhulm to an ant. Who here read Surah Al-Naml? The surah named after the ant. The story has this, that when Prophet Sulayman is entering with his large army, this ant comes. The Quran mentions the story here in Surah Al-Naml. وَحُشِرَ لِسُلَيْمَانَ جُنُودُهُ مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ وَالطَّيْرِ فَهُمْ يُوزَعُونَ. And we gathered for Sulayman the soldiers of jinn, men, birds, and they marched in rows. Imagine us, we haven't seen such a marching ever. Jinn, ins, birds coming for one prophet. Until they came upon the valley of the ants. And ants said, "O ants, ya ayyuhan naml, O ants, enter your dwellings, that you do not be crushed by Sulayman and his soldiers while they perceive not. Go to your home so you do not get crushed." There in the hadith, in the story, is Sulayman. This reaches Sulayman's ears. He can even hear what the ant is saying. Quran mentions, فَتَبَسَّمَ ضَاحِكًا. This is one of the places where Prophet Sulayman smiled, amused by the speech of the ant, because he can even hear the ant. Sometimes people question, how does Imam of the age hear me? Prophet Sulayman listened to an ant. Ayatollah Bahjat says, before your ears hear you, Imam al-Zaman has heard you. Before your own ears hear you, Imam al-Zaman has heard you. So he listens to the ant and smiles. And the tradition says, "Dear ant, do you know that I am God's prophet and I will not do wrong upon anyone?" And the tradition says this, says, "I know that I wanted to make sure that this army would not be distracted, these ants would not be distracted by the army, they would go back to work." It seemed like one of those ant bosses that would never allow a little break for ants. Make sure they're always working. They always say busy bees, for example. Ants are also very busy. So go back to work. Ants, don't get distracted. Don't look. Don't take breaks. Keep working. So therefore, this is one example and beautiful story of Prophet Sulayman with the ants. He won't even crush an ant. But how many, I ask you, khulafa did we have that said we're successors of the Prophet? And not only did they crush the ants, they set fire to the house of Sayyidah Fatima. They killed Imam Hussein ibn Ali, his own grandson. They, as Imam Sadiq in tradition, mentioned that their government of the Umayyads is based on the sayf, on the sword. And our government is based on rifq, compassion. If you want to see which side people are, see, are their government with compassion or with threatening, with oppression, with arrogance, for example. Another interesting story about Prophet Sulayman, and I think maybe children like these stories because they like stories with animals. Who here knows what the bird hudhud is? Right? Hudhud is a little wild bird, has a little nice mohawk, nice looking mohawk. And I think the English, you pronounce it as hoto. There's different ways to express it, hoto. There's actually a TV station called Hudhud, and this is funded by the office of Ayatollah Sistani, because he felt that it is important, it's Arabic and in Farsi, for children to have an Islamic channel. It's called Shabakeh Hudhud. The adults can watch this later on, inshallah, when you go home and check it out. So this Hudhud, Prophet Sulayman comes and he enters and does Hajj, performs Hajj. Remember, this is the practice of the prophets from the time of Prophet Ibrahim. Remember, when you go to Hajj, just think of it. For example, how many prophets were there from Prophet Adam, Prophet Ibrahim, Prophet Sulayman. And now you see Prophet Ismail. Now you see that they're coming back from this marvelous, ziyarah, this Hajj that they did. And they're going back. And Prophet Sulayman was in charge of his army. The books has that he would have the birds line up perfectly, and then he saw a ray of light. So one is missing. And he inquired and said, oh, Hudhud is gone. Where is he? He's supposed to be there because Hudhud is the one who directs us towards water. We find where water is. He from up there, he would find water. It's much easier to look for water than, for example, this elevation that we have or this position that we have. Hudhud is threatened by Prophet Sulayman. The tradition has that I will punish him unless he has a good reason. Hudhud here that I believe has actual name here, Ya'fur, they say. Ya'fur means Angir. This is where Hudhud has been gone missing. He went and he met this other Hudhud, and together they were talking, and Angir says, you know what? I'm from, Hudhud says, from Prophet Sulayman, which is he heard about it too. Oh, the one who has the army of the birds is the army of the jinn, the inns. He says, I am from also a powerful kingdom, which is the queen of Sheba, which is Bilqis or Bilqis. I am from them, one who is ruled by the women, by a lady, a woman, and one who they worship the sun. Hudhud comes back and he's worried. He's thinking of Tawheed as well. He wants to inform the Prophet. At that time, Prophet Sulayman takes no waste of time, sends a falcon, and the falcon gets Hudhud, grabs him in a bad way, and he's asking for mercy. He says that the Prophet of God wants you. That if you do not have a good excuse, he threatened to punish you. And therefore he comes to the Prophet of God, Hudhud comes in front of him, and the tradition and the story it says, he asks him, where were you? And he asks Prophet Sulayman to have mercy, just how one day I am in front of you. You one day will be in front of Allah. And the anger of Prophet Sulayman leaves. He's not angry anymore. Because you think about it, one day all of us will be in front of Allah, the Maliki Yawmiddin, the owner of the Day of Judgment. So he says that I have good news, and he says that there is news. I have this empire that is by this queen, and that they should be guided, they're worshiping the sun. And this information is enough for Prophet Sulayman to write a letter. And how does he write his letter? Who can tell me what does it start with? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So you see this Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim that we are taught that is one of the closest expressions to Ismul A'zam, the name that will change things. One of the closest names, he starts with this. And this, if we want to live like the Prophet, say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You want to enter somewhere, enter the car. If you remember, try to start with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Because if you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, it won't be a sin, because nobody does a sin or act of corruption or embezzles or rips someone off with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Unless they must be very sick, for example, to do that. So therefore, he writes this letter and he sends, Hudhud seems like he knows his way around, has Hudhud take it. And he takes it and puts it on the throne of Bilqis. There she reads it, they read it, and they are worried. She asked the advisors, what should I do? She knew this is a powerful army. Should we just surrender, for example? Should we fight? It came to her mind to give gifts. Give him some gifts. Maybe you will like it, and you leave us alone. The messenger is sent, the gifts come, but the gifts are rejected. Prophet Sulayman is not looking for gifts. He's a prophet of Allah. He's a zahid of the dunya. So therefore, he then again sends messages in a way, or he decides to do something else. He decides to take her throne, because this was a great grand throne. And he asks, who can do it? One person, Asif ibn Barqiyah, says, I can do it before a blink of an eye. Right now, blink, for example, you see how fast they bring the throne of Bilqis. Now Bilqis finally wants to come to see Prophet Sulayman. And in this meeting, she wants to, again, change his opinion so she can survive. And it's a very nice story throughout the Quran. Now that the Hudhud leads to this part, the Quran continues that when she arrives, I'll read it inshallah from the Quran. When she arrives there, it says, قِيلَ لَهَا أُدْخُلِ الصَّرْحِ. It says, enter the palace. فَلَمَّا رَأَتْهُ حَسِبَتْهُ لُجَّةً. When she comes to the palace, Quran says, she thought it was a pool of water. So what does she do? The brothers do not look. وَكَشَفَتْ عَنْ سَاقَيْهَا. She opens a little bit to the legs, this amount here, to the ankles, for example, the saq, to the shin. Plus maybe there's clothes or whatever, we don't know, but let's just say. So it opens a little bit here. Why? Because she thought it was wet. Because this palace, she thought it was made out of water. قَالَ إِنَّهُ سَرْحٌ مُمَرَّدٌ مِنْ قَوَارِيرٍ. Actually, this is a palace paved with crystal. Maybe this is my interpretation. Then probably she says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. She sees, wow, look at this. There's water made out of crystal. And if you want to make someone Muslim, do something beautiful like this. Make a crystal palace, and they will become Muslim. And then Quran says, actually here, قَالَ رَبِّ إِنِّي ظَلَمْتُ نَفْسِي. She says, indeed, I've wronged myself. I've worshipped the sun. وَأَسْلَمْتُ مَعَ Sulayman. Now she becomes Muslim after seeing this and the power of Prophet Sulayman. And obviously, the guidance when you see a prophet of Allah, we can't just say it's due to the palace. The guidance of Allah. وَأَسْلَمْتُ مَعَ سُلَيْمَانَ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. I submit to Solomon, to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. So therefore, she sees, and they show her also the throne. And they say, is this similar to your throne? She says, that is my throne. And they understand that. Asif ibn Barkhiyah, who had a little bit knowledge of what Prophet Sulayman taught him, a little bit knowledge of the book, was able to do this. And I give this tradition that the knowledge of Asif ibn Barkhiyah, who brings from a blink of an eye the throne, compared to Ali ibn Abi Talib in the narration, is compared to the wetness on one's wing, a fly or a mosquito's wing, compared to the ocean. Let's recite salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So you have perfect story. There's ants in it. There's hudhud in it, mashallah. The story of Prophet Sulayman and this queen of Sheba. Prophet Sulayman has this ability to talk to birds. Once he witnessed a sparrow, a male sparrow chase a female sparrow. And the male sparrow was kept chasing, and the female sparrow did not want to give in. The tradition has in the book. It says, now Prophet Sulayman becomes like a matchmaker and is wondering, why aren't you two, for example, he wants happiness. He wants these two sparrows to live in happiness. Why don't you, female sparrow, why don't you, this guy, he's working so hard, for example, he's trying, why don't you become, for example, in love with each other? And Prophet Sulayman gets this answer. She would claim, oh, Prophet of God, he is not truly in love with me. Again, this is all paraphrasing from the story. He's not truly in love with me. He only claims to be so, for he loves another one besides me. He loves someone else. He comes to me, maybe he flaps his wings and he moves his neck or makes sounds or whatever very beautifully, but his heart is somewhere else. He actually loves another bird, another sparrow. It says here that Prophet Sulayman deeply went into a moment of retreat to the temple for 40 days. When he heard this, 40 days, weeping intensely and begging God to purify his heart from all love, but the love of God. And God forbid, may I be in the same way, that I in a little bit may have love of something else but you, and that my love is not genuine for you, sincere for you. Brothers and sisters, this brings us to the next 15 minutes. The topic that I want to share from this story is ikhlas, sincerity. Many of us think we love Allah. Many of us think that we are sincere. But we see that in our hearts, there's other intentions. And this can be found by examining ourselves. Prophet Sulayman was examining. Of course, as a prophet, he only has love of Allah. But you worry about yourself. It's okay to worry. And I ask you tonight, after around 30 days of worship, did our ikhlas and sincerity increase? Did my love for Allah increase? What is ikhlas? What is sincerity? How can I have it? One quality that I like about this center is that we do not make mention of names of specific donors, from what I know, for the dinner, to promote ikhlas, even though Allah will reward. If you mention or not mention, Allah will reward. Now we, as a community, we are in debt to make fatah for the marhumin generally and to acknowledge and thank them. We're very grateful so far for everyone so far who gave iftar. We ask Allah to give them the best of rewards and their marhumin, inshallah. But when nobody knows, it makes it a little bit more sincere. Our imams were known for sadaqatul sir. Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam. Even the enemies, those who are nawasib, would say Imam Zainul Abidin is known for sadaqatul sir. He would hide the provisions, and sometimes it would bruise. He would have a bruise here, for example, on this part of the body, because at night they would cover themselves so nobody would know, and they would help people. Nobody would know. Now, when it comes to masjid and helping, yes, sometimes it's good as a source of encouragement. I will donate 10,000, for example. I will match him, for example. This is encouragement. But mix and match these things. Sometimes they'll give a dinner, give something, and nobody knows you did it, for example. This is what Allah accepts, inshallah. The tradition has this. What is ikhlas? Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, let's recite salat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Al-amalu al-khalis. What is the sincere action? الذي لا تريد أن يحمد عليه أحد إلا الله عز وجل. The action with ikhlas is you wish that nobody praises you for it. Nobody praises you. Even nobody knows. I'm not getting reward. What does it mean when no one praises me? Let me give you an example. Sometimes we have individuals, not in this center, other centers. They work for many years, and there's a lot of pressure that goes on them because it's almost like a full-time job. You're coordinating things, you're volunteering, cleaning. Everyone else wants to leave early. Every night you're stuck here cleaning. Everyone else has left. And after a while, you're wondering, how come they don't appreciate me? How come I don't have maybe my name should be on there, for example. They should know me. Or sometimes they say, maybe you need to change. We need to put someone else. And that person becomes upset because they thought that, God forbid, that reward should come from the people. Even though we want people to respect us, that is something we have to do. If a person does not respect the creation, you have not respected the creator. But as someone who is mukhlis and sincere, they do not wish to be praised for it. They want to work, and even if you praise them, if you don't praise them, sometimes if you even argue with them, tell them off, for example. You shouldn't do this, obviously, because they're the khadim of Imam Hussein, Fatima Zahra. Even if you tell them off, they will still continue their sincere work. Why? Because they're not working for you, they're not working for money, they're not working for anything but Allah. They're working khalisan. And can we reach this? That you view khidmah to Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam as a tawfiq, not as a minnah. They say, Allah, thank you. You brought me here so I can serve. Thank you, because there's so many people that are not serving. And this is one of the best actions, is to serve the mu'mineen, serve the community. Allah, you are raising my rank. And I'm grateful of it. But yes, people do not know. Maybe it's 10 years, 15 years, 20, 30 years. Nobody really knows. Allah knows. This is ikhlas. And this is something that unfortunately in the West, always people need to be praised. You have to hear, thank you, I appreciate it, it's good. But what if I don't hear it? Will you still continue this action? So therefore we look in the tradition, al-ikhlas, ghayatud deen. Ikhlas is the peak of religion. If you become someone who is mukhlis, no, the sincere one is the pinnacle and the peak of religion. Did you wish nobody praises you? Then the tradition continues in another hadith. طُوبَى لَمَنْ أَخْلَصَ اللَّهُ عَمَلًا وَعِلْمًا. Now you can make sincere your actions. You've heard of sincere actions. You make sincere your knowledge. You make sincere your hope wa bughd. How can I make my love sincere? That's weird, isn't it? How can I make my love and hatred sincere? Because you love in the path of Allah. You begin to change so much that love of Allah is like the sun. And anyone that orbits around the sun, you love. So therefore, any believer and follower of our Prophet, and especially mutadayyin, mu'min, followers of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, you begin to love them. Regardless of what ethnicity they are, regardless of what gender they are, regardless of what age they have. You look at them and you have ikhlas and your love, because you see, this is a Shia of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, and I love him because I love the Imam. Sulayman liman salamakum, in Imam Ziyad Imam Hussein, you say, I am at peace with whoever is at peace with you. And this really teaches us a lesson, that if we want to grow as a community, we have to learn, don't only love the one who is from my same village. Don't love the one, for example, who speaks my language and I give him a little bit more food, for example. No, but that's not the masjid, this masjid, the other. Or for example, I will give them, more priority because he is closer to me. No, what is your milak? Why do you love somebody? Because of Allah. Because Allah loves him. I love him. Maybe he doesn't even fit with your culture. Maybe he doesn't speak your language. I love him because Allah loves him. This is called ikhlas in love. Ikhlas in hate. I despise someone. How come, unfortunately, we have love for figures who have nothing to do with God, nothing to do with the truth? They're promoting, for example, fahsha. They're promoting corruption in the world. And we have a little bit of love for them in our hearts. What if our love was in hatred? It was only for Allah. That is ikhlas and love and hate. وَأَخْذَهُ وَتَرْكَ, and taking and removing, for example, وَكَلَامَهُ وَسَمْتَ, and having ikhlas in speech. What if every time I talked, and most people now that I hear some people talking, they might have a lot of ikhlas. We don't know. They might be talking very good things because they're doing it for Allah. But to know when to talk, when not to talk. Brothers and sisters, a side note. Something I observed in schools in general, because I also offer classes, is there has been a problem recently. This hasn't been a problem in other cultures. That children talk during class a lot. They talk a lot during class. And these poor teachers are always trying to calm them down, put, like, for example, tallies on their names and speak to their parents, because they drive the teacher nuts. When I want to speak and someone else is speaking, it really distracts me. For example, if from my 100% that I try to do, it goes down to 70, 50, because I really can't concentrate and I get a little frustrated. Imagine these poor teachers. If you learn and you have ikhlas and kalam, in samt, which is being quiet, believe me, two things will happen. One, Allah will love you if you're quiet a little bit. Two, your jaw muscle will take a rest. You have mercy on this. It's barely connected. Go and look at, for example, in the image. It's very scary. I want you. It can fall off any time if you talk too much, maybe. So go and look at it and have ikhlas. When it comes to talking, stop talking. This is important, but especially in the majlis of Ahlul Bayt. So why? Because your sons, your daughters are watching you, saying, mommy and daddy is talking during Quran. Mommy and daddy are talking during, for example, Adhan. That's okay to talk, right? They're talking. So when they go to school, they will talk. But you want them to be the most submissive and to learn the most. And the only way for them to learn the most is to be quiet and to participate by raising their hand. So having ikhlas in talking, something important for us to have. وَفَعْلَهُ وَقَوْلَهُ. Let's go through some of the other narrations. Sometimes we think that actions have to be abundant. And action has to be a lot. The night, maybe I should have said this before the night of Qadr, for example, but now that you did it, maybe if I did it, you wouldn't do all the long du'as and amal. Sometimes you think to have a very good shabaqat, I need to read so much and pray so much. Shabaqat is about ikhlas. Shabaqat is about that connection, ittisal to Allah. Believe me, one line that you read in Joshua Kabir and you cry and you reflect and it changes your life is better than the entire a'mal of Laylatul Qadr that you're doing without paying attention. One of our Urafa, Ayatollah Abdul Karim Kashmiri, said, how many shabaqat did you recite, all these a'mal? How many times did you recite the entire Quran? What station do you have? If it was going to do something for you, would have done something by now. He says, ponder and do tadabbur and think and reflect. Have ikhlas when it comes to one line. And repeat that one line and cry over that one line. Then when you have that ittisal, it's not too late. These nights of shabaqat and these du'as that we'll be saying, think about it. And one line that you pay attention, that will move you forward because the night of Qadr is worth more than 1,000 months, meaning I should move 1,000 months ahead. Tomorrow, the next day, I have capability to move 1,000 months ahead in my spiritual journey. But why? Because I just read and read and read. It's good to read. Practicing is good because we have to practice to worship because we're lazy. It's hard for us. But the tradition I want you to pay attention is here. Ya Musa alayhi salam, the tradition. Ma uridu bihi wajhi fakathiruhu fakathirun qalilu. O Moses, whatever is done for my sake, a little of it is a lot. A little bit of action, a little bit of ikhlas. You have, for example, a little bit of water, a little bit of tea, for example. You bring your tea and shabaqat, for example. And you want to share it. Maybe I love tea, I love to drink. Maybe I give it to someone else because I give from what I love. Maybe that night, Allah will purchase that. He really loved tea, he gave it for someone, he doesn't have any for himself. He had a little bit of water, for example, he gives it to someone else. He has a little bit of time. He takes from his family and he gives it to masjid. Take a little bit of ikhlas, a little bit of action is worth a lot. Allah sees a lot because intention is more important than action. This is something in Shahr Ramadan focus on before it's too late. وَمَا أُرِيدَ بِهِ غَيْرِي فَقَلِيلٌ كَثِيرٌ. And what is done for the sakes of others, there's no ikhlas in it. A lot of it is little. You can read the entire Quran. Keep reading, reciting. A lot of it is little. They say there was some lady that was reciting the salat all the time. And they looked at her in masjid, they kept saying, this old lady, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. You know, sometimes when from others, you have a lot of energy from others. Inshallah, they're watching me. Look at me, Allahu Akbar. Lean, for example, perfect. And they kept saying, look at this lady. Look at her. She's praying. So great. And she, in the middle of her prayer, she prays, says, you don't know I'm fasting as well. You don't know I'm fasting as well. So sometimes our actions are for showing off. I'm telling myself, how hard is it to have the action of ikhlas, that you really pray and nobody knows. Sometimes you do salat al-layl or, for example, other salat, nobody else knows. It's just you and Allah. Compared to worshiping and everyone is watching you. There's a tradition, it's a very interesting tradition when I ran across it. Maybe we'll end with this tradition. There are levels of ikhlas, stages. Those who have given their lives this last year, we've seen them. They've given their lives for Allah. They are the mukhlisun. They gave everything they wanted to fight against oppression. There are those, in the tradition it says, from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, let's recite salat for Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. They're pious people, they're servants, they're sincere, but they come to the day of judgment and their book of A'mal, their book is empty. Their book is empty. They're good people. There's nothing in it. You can't read it. And then it says here, they ask why. Why will it be empty? The Imam answers, Ya Mawlai, liman dhalik. Why is it empty? فقال أجلهم أن تطلع حفتة على ما بينه وبينهم. They are in such a status, they had so much ikhlas, that Allah wanted that action to be so sincere just between them and Allah, that even the guardian angels do not know. Nobody else knows it's empty, but Allah sees it. Because their whole life, they were doing things when everyone else was sleeping. They were doing things when everyone else was not paying attention. They were busy working for Allah. And they had sincerity. They only wanted the reward to be from Allah. And therefore, on the day of judgment, it will be empty, their deeds. But then you'll see that Allah doesn't even want the creation to know, only wants Himself. Maybe, inshallah, this Shahr Ramadan, make dua, we can have ikhlas. May Allah allow us to practice what we preach, inshallah, and be of the mukhlaseen. I forgot to mention a few things. I'll just say, I'll just end it because we have a few more minutes. What causes sincerity, which is important? One, conviction or yaqeen. When you reach yaqeen and certainty, you work only for Allah. Two, tradition. How can I reach sincerity? It says, ilm, thamaratul ilm, having knowledge. Having knowledge of Allah. He is powerful, merciful. He is capable. This Allah, I will serve Him. Then the rest is not important for you. Three, how else can I have sincere? قلل الأعمال. Make your aspirations in this world few. Don't say, I want to be a billionaire, I want to be the richest, I want to be this in the dunya, that. If you don't have these material aspirations, you only work for Allah, inshaAllah. And the fourth is asl ikhlas al-ya's mimma fi aydin nas. Having despair in the hands of people who say, nobody can help me. I'm not going to try to appease them. I'm not going to show off on them. These are people, they're faqir. They need Allah's help. I'm only going to work for Allah. May Allah, inshallah, make us of the mukhlaseen. Inshallah, make us always following the mukhlasoon. May Allah forgive our sins this Thursday night. Answer our prayers, inshallah, accept our fasting. As-sawmu li wa ana ajzi bih. The tradition has fasting is for me. I will reward it myself. This is sincere action. Ya Allah, we ask you to give protection to the mu'mineen and mu'minat, inshallah, throughout the entire world. Remove oppression from their lands. Remove poverty and injustice from their lands, inshallah. Ya Allah, we ask you to have mercy Thursday night at our marhumeen. Don't forget about them, Shahr Ramadan. Give them the reward, inshallah, of our gatherings and of our fasting. Ya Allah, we ask you to give us good ibadat, sincere worship of you, and inshallah to make us of the companions of the Imam of the age with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa